Hello, friends. Welcome to my car on this Wednesday, Hump Day, on Remembrance Day week, everybody. Happy Wednesday and the game day. The Montreal Canadiens back in action after they went to Detroit and beat the Red Wings in Motown for the first time since February 26th of 2019. That's right. I had a brain cramp there for a second. Yeah, the Montreal Canadiens, for whatever reason, have had a hard time going to Detroit and coming away with 2 points, giving the Canadiens a 6-6-1 record after 13 games, and they are back at it, my friends. Canadiens and Canucks tonight. It's a 7:35 puck drop live on TSN 690. Another impressive game by the Montreal Canadiens, who went to Detroit and beat a team that was 5-1-1 on home ice. So the Red Wings have been pretty good out of the gates, and we saw them recently. The Canadiens went there October 14th and got shut out in a 3-0 final. But some interesting developments in the aftermath of the Canadiens' 3-2 shootout win. It was nice to see some secondary scoring. Mike Hoffman now has 3 goals in the season after he scored a pair yesterday. And kind of interesting that Mike Hoffman looked engaged. He was going to the net as a very simplified game plan, I thought, a very north-south kind of game from number 68, Mike Hoffman, who is enemy number 1 in this town. We'll talk about Mike Hoffman later. But Brendan Gallagher, smart play, shooting pucks to the net, creating rebounds. And boy, those were some pretty fat, juicy rebounds. And Mike Hoffman, with his simplified approach in Detroit last night, gets paid off with some dividends and a couple of goals. So Gallagher gets a couple of assists. He's energized. He's playing well. Mike Hoffman's got 3 goals. So we talked about secondary scoring. Where was it? Are they going to get more of it? They got it yesterday. And some unbelievable goaltending by Jake Allen. 41 saves total as the Canadiens skate off with a 3-2 shootout win. Shootout goal scored by Cole Caulfield. And a nice take you outside, take you wide. Nick Suzuki with another very smart, very calm, delivered, patient approach, and the Canadiens win this game. So lots to talk about, certainly. But right off the top, the refereeing last night. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm not one to complain about referees. I always believe that if you're going to look at a game and say, you lost this game because of the Zebras, I think that's a losing proposition. I think that's an easy out. It's not something that I think is really explainable when we talk about why your team didn't perform all that well and you're blaming the officials. But last night was very, very special. Last night was something that I personally have never seen. And it was interesting that Dylan Larkin of the Detroit Red Wings, their captain, gets a breakaway, gets his shot off clean. And the referees decide to, A, reward him with a penalty shot and penalize the Montreal Canadiens. That was the start of 7 straight calls that went against the Montreal Canadiens. And look, if the Canadiens have bad goaltending, if they went up against a team with a respectable power play, they probably lose that game because the referees absolutely put the Montreal screw job to Martin St. Louis with 7 straight calls. Really? Caden Gooley, David Savard get called back-to-back on Michael Rasmussen. David Savard, who is calm, cool, and as composed as anybody on this team, absolutely flipped his lid and lost it. He got a 10-minute misconduct because he couldn't control himself. And I get it. Like Martin St. Louis really nailed it after the game when he talked about his veteran defenseman who plays an honest, hard-working game, and he just wants the same given back to him from the referees, and they did not do that yesterday. But look, the Canadiens prevail. Good on Martin St. Louis for giving it to the referees. I wondered about whether or not St. Louis, who's a Hall of Fame player, who has instant respect as a player, does he get a little bit more freedom to really go after the referees if he wants to have a conversation, an aggressive, confrontational conversation? I think he does, and he should. Now, the respect as a player should be translatable to respect as a coach. This man knows of what he speaks. He comes from a very credible place as a player that, for me, he shouldn't have to be kind of broken in as an NHL coach. I was happy to see Martin St. Louis. He was in the fight just as his team was in the fight, and they come back with 2 points, giving them a 6-6-1 record after 13 games. That leaves them at 500 on the season, on pace for an 82-point season. So are you worried? I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be worried, okay? Look what's happening. I keep telling you about the law of averages. This is the hill I will die on this season. I do not believe what we're seeing, especially from the goaltending, is sustainable. The Canadiens are making a lot of mistakes in their own end. Arbor Xhekaj, out of position, making some bad decisions. I still like his game. I like Arbor Xhekaj as a player. Don't get me wrong. Nobody is perfect. But we're seeing goaltending performances, whether it's Jake Allen's 41 saves or Sam Montembeault's 43 saves against Washington the other night. The goaltending performances are very strong, and they're masking mistakes. So this is, where I'm here to tell you that I think at this point, with Jake Allen and Sam Monto playing as strong as they have been, playing as consistently as they have been, I do think 20 games from now, we're not going to be talking or having the same level of conversation. And thus, those mistakes that are being covered up by timely stops are going to start going in with a little bit more frequency. So the Canadiens are getting out of this world goaltending. They're getting some of the best consistent goaltending in the NHL today. And guys, they're still 500. They're still 6-1, okay? So that alone, that facet alone, has given me enough pause to say, okay, I'm not sweating the fact that the Montreal Canadiens could be in jeopardy of botching this draft pick that everybody is salivating over. You got to finish top 8. You got to be top 8 in the draft this summer if you really want to do some heavy lifting, right? Because I understand, and I've been telling you this for a little bit. We in this market, watching the Montreal Canadiens for as long as we've been watching this team, we've been down this road several times. It's enough with the fluky stuff, or you ride a great goaltending performance in the season that gets you to the 6th spot, the 7th spot in your conference, and you get a playoff berth. Maybe you get a little bit more luck, you win a round, maybe you win 2, and who knows, right? We've been down that path before. We've seen bounces go the Canadiens' way. We've seen luck land on the lap of the Montreal Canadiens as it relates to the playoffs. Are you sick of it? Are you sick of it? I know I am. I know that this market deserves more than lady luck landing on the lap of the Montreal Canadiens more often than not, right? I tell you what I want. I want to be Tampa Bay. I want to be the Colorado Avalanche. I want this market to have a team like the city of Tampa Bay has, like Colorado has, right? I want sustained success. I want a 10-year plan. I want to see 10 years of the Montreal Canadiens being a team nobody wants to play every single night. I want to see a team that wins the Stanley Cup in the next 10 years. I want to see a team that gets the Stanley Cup finals, gets to conference finals a couple of times in the next decade, and brings home a title. That's the goal here. That's the end goal. That's what we're aiming for. That's what I think Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon, when they have this master plan, right, that I think they've created for themselves, what's the best way to get this team to the Stanley Cup? How do you bring a 25th Stanley Cup back to the 5-1-4? There has to be a plan. It's not just wing it. Go to work on some idle Monday and just like, oh, okay, let's make a deal today. No, there has to be a plan. There has to be a storyboard where they're following and going down the list of things that need to be done in order to achieve the goal of winning a Stanley Cup. And while I think it's fun to see the team competitive, and as Martin St. Louis has said, and as we talked about here, the Canadiens go into every game trying to win it. They don't give a crap about Connor Bedard or who they're likely going to draft in July. Nobody on the team that's playing for the Canadiens right now cares about the draft. They care about Vancouver tonight. They care about the team they're going to play. I think it's Pittsburgh on Saturday night. That's who the Canadiens and the players care about. But I do believe Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes, while they're watching these games, obviously, they're trying to forecast the future, and they're trying to project what the future and the makeup of this team is going to look like. So can I see a situation in which Ken Hughes is looking at his team and saying, what are they doing? How are they doing this? How are they overachieving? How are they defying expectations? Because now we have to take the hypothetical the whole way. Let's go. Let's not stop halfway. If we're going to talk about this team defying expectations at every turn, let's go the whole way. Let's put them in the playoffs. Let's make them a dangerous team, okay? Let's have them do this in this hypothetical. How do you sell that? How can you sell that to the market, right? Well, I'm going to tell you how you could sell it to the market. You could sell it by one simple fact. The youth movement has developed at a quicker rate than anybody, including Hughes and Gordon, you or I, thought that they would develop at, right? So Nick Suzuki continues to be a better than a point a game guy. Cole Caulfield, you know where Cole Caulfield's prorated season is at today? 50 goals and 88 points. So if we're going to go the whole way with this hypothetical, that means Cole Caulfield, if he doesn't get to 50, he's going to be knocking on the door. Same thing with Nick Suzuki. If he doesn't get to 82 points, he's going to be knocking on the door. That's what's going to happen if the Canadiens are going to defy everyone's expectations, right? That means Jake Allen is playing well. Jordan Harris, who almost won the game for the Canadiens yesterday, is still consistent. And on we go, right? Everybody is hitting their marks this season in order to take our hypothetical of the Canadiens defying expectations and going to the playoffs. And how do you sell that message to the market? You sell the message to the market by showing them the evidence. Look what Gouli has done. Look what Suzuki has done. Look what Caulfield has done. Look what Harris has done. Look what Jack has done. Look at Goulia's has done. Look at all of these young players, this youth movement that has propelled the Montreal Canadiens into a playoff spot when nobody saw it coming. That's how you sell it. That's how you sell it. And I think it's an easy sell because you already see it now. Like there's a portion of the fan base, especially early in the season when the Canadiens were like 3-0-1 or whatever it was. They weren't losing games on home ice, and people were pointing there. See, Sean, you were wrong. Canadiens are a good team. They're going to be a fun team to watch. I was like, well, let's wait a minute. Let's wait a minute. Then they lost a couple of games on the road, and then those same people were coming back to me and say, oh, Sean, you were right to cool your jets a little bit. So when it comes to how this Canadiens team can perform, I think the sell job is almost already there because fans are having fun watching the Canadiens. Like you watched that game yesterday. That was a fun game. You know, who cared? The referees they tried to gift wrap the game to Detroit with 7 straight calls from the first period into the third period. 7 straight calls. But the fans are excited because the team is competitive and star players are scoring and performing, right? So the message is already half sold. And so can you imagine a scenario in which the Canadiens into February and into March continue to overachieve and continue to put up points and continue to climb up the standings, right? So all of this can happen. And I don't think it's that crazy of a message to sell. But on the other side of that coin, let's talk about the other side for a second. Let's talk about what we think Ken Hughes is observing as he watches the Montreal Canadiens. Because right now, with Mike Hoffman scoring twice last night, 3 goals on the season, that's not nothing. Jonathan Drouin, Yoel Armia, a lot left to be desired there. I thought Yoel Armia struggled yesterday. I thought Jonathan Drouin, borderline invisible, back-checking, not their area of strength, right? And so if Ken Hughes is on the cusp of making a move, in which I don't think he is, there needs to be more time. You need to let some of these veterans flex a little bit more, and that means Mike Hoffman scoring more goals, Jonathan Drouin more engaged, Yoel Armia more consistent. But what about Jake Allen? Like if Ken Hughes has this imaginary storyboard that I think exists, right? And Ken Hughes has this, and the Canadiens continue to overachieve. Does Ken Hughes look at Jake Allen and says, well, I got to get this guy out of here because he's playing too well? Or is it more plausible to see a team that has playoff aspirations overwhelm Ken Hughes with an offer and say, listen, I need Jake Allen and I'm willing to overpay? Then Ken Hughes obviously has to make that move. But what does that do to the balance of the team in the room? I find that very fascinating. And how I think something like that could work. So I gave you one half of my hypothetical. Now, the Canadiens overachieve all season long and find themselves close, if not into a playoff position. Can you sell that to this market? Yes, you can. What about Ken Hughes saying, I don't want this team to make the playoffs. My goal is the Canadiens drafting bare minimum inside the top 8. I need my organization to achieve that goal this summer. How can I do that without upsetting a team that is hardwired to win? The Canadian players and their leadership group and everybody on this roster wants to win every single night. So it would be like taking the wind out of their sails if we're talking another hypothetical that Jake Allen gets traded, Joel Edmondson gets traded, right? Some of these character veteran players, David Savard gets moved, right? How do you sell that part to the players? Because that could be a tough one. Because if this team is fighting tooth and nail and they're overachieving and nobody believed in them except the guys in the room, and then the general manager comes out and takes some of their better players away, their character glue guys away, how does the team's balance get affected by a move like that? That's where I think you see the importance of a captain. That's where I think you see the importance of a guy like Nick Suzuki, who to me is the go-between. Nick Suzuki is the guy between his team, his players, his guys, and Ken Hughes and the coach and the front office. So I could see a hypothetical here where the Montreal Canadiens are overachieving and Ken Hughes wants none of it and has to start moving guys because either offers are too sexy or the team is too good and Ken Hughes really wants a top 8 pick in July, that he has to bring Nick Suzuki in. That conversation needs to be had, and Nick Suzuki has to believe in it, and then he has to take it to the room and tell his guys that once again, it's our room, guys. And now the organization in the front office has made that determination that they have really now turned the keys over to Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield by moving, hypothetically speaking, some of these veteran players. So I tried to do a good job, I think, of painting both sides of this hypothetical, because the Canadiens are again 500 after last night's 3-2 win in Detroit. They're back home to Vancouver, the beginning of a 3-game homestand that starts tonight at 7:35. And you got your secondary scoring yesterday. Brendan Gallagher is engaged. You saw Mike Hoffman with a pair of goals, and Jake Allen has been fantastic. Brendan Gallagher had 5 shots on goal yesterday. You know, and the Canadiens, despite the referees' interference, did you see the splits? The Red Wings got 4 minutes in penalties yesterday. You know how many the Canadiens got? 35. Yeah, sure. You know, David Savard got the 10-minute misconduct, and Juraj Slafkovsky on Matt Luff of the Detroit Red Wings in the third period yesterday. If you missed it, Luff kind of had the puck in between the benches, and Juraj Slafkovsky with a very, very bad decision, a very dangerous situation, as Luff had his back to the player. And again, arguably the most dangerous area on the ice. There's enough space between you, the player, and the boards that if a physical altercation were to occur and you were to get body checked, you were going to get hurt because you were in a really bad spot. And Juraj Slafkovsky made a bad decision, a bad judgment decision on the ice, because that's a perfect example of a player not thinking but reacting. That's instinct taking over. Player, physical contact. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. You see it on his face right away. That's why I do think ultimately Juraj Slafkovsky is going to get a game or two. The Canadiens just went through with Josh Anderson when he hit Alex Pietrangelo on Saturday night in the game with Vegas. The hit Slafkovsky put on Luff yesterday, in my opinion, was worse than what Anderson did to Pietrangelo, who Pietrangelo kind of turned into the hit, and Anderson still got 2 games. So I think Slafkovsky is going to get 2 or 3 games for that poor judgment and that decision yesterday in the 3-2 shootout win over the Detroit Red Wings. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And the Canadiens, it's undeniable. The Canadiens are fun. What are you all saying today? In the Car with Star, brought to you as always by littlebearonline.com. Use the promo code INTHECAR10. Save yourself at checkout all your pets' needs. Chuck Altman and the staff at Little Bear at littlebearonline.com care about your pet's health and needs as much as you do. Steph Howard, good morning, Steph. Jake Allen's value has started to skyrocket. If the right offers come, you know Hughes won't be scared to trade him. That's business, baby. That's the business of managing a hockey team. And for sure, if a team that is willing to overpay because they're so desperate, then it's your job. It's your job to take as much as you can from them if they're willing to offer up whatever they're willing to offer up. You could sell it by telling the team they want to give you more room to the youth, for sure. But they're already on the cusp of doing that. So I'm fascinated to see if they're going to go the entire way with this and really take the training wheels off, so to speak, and really give it to Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, who, again, Nick Suzuki had a nice shootout goal yesterday, and the Canadiens are back in action 7:30 against Vancouver. So it should be lots of fun tonight. Looking forward to reacting to this game with y'all later. Don't forget, K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, proud sponsors of In the Car with Star, have been since day one. Highway 138 in Ganawage. You got premium fuel at discount prices. Don't forget, freshly prepared meals served hot daily. Go check them out. Highway 138 in Ganawage. It's right over the Mercier Bridge. Premium fuel at discount prices and the best snack selection in the game today. So perfect opportunity for you to go out there today and load up on your snacks, get your gas, get your lunch served to you fresh, prepared in-house at K-Stop Gas Bar, and get ready for tonight's game against the Vancouver Canucks. 7:35 tonight. So it's going to be more like 7:50-ish, 7:45-ish. One anthem game tonight, which is all right by me. All right, my friends. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Thanks for all your comments. I appreciate them as always. We having fun watching this team. I am. It's really, I got to tell you, man, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see a fun team that scores goals, that plays with pace, that is competitive. It's kind of what you want as a sports fan, man. It's why we're in this, right? We're in this to be entertained. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can support me by supporting my sponsors, Little Bear Online, K-Stop Gas Bar, and Ash Gregoire Chamonix Nissan. It is Quebec's #1 rated Nissan dealership. In the Car with Star. We'll see you later.